And Germany has accelerated its plans to withdraw its troops from Mali, aiming for the end of this year. Now, German media are reporting that the exit might not be so clean-cut. Locals who have held German forces say they fear retribution. Let's get more on this from William Glucroft, a reporter with our partner Deutsche Welle in Berlin. So, William, what do we know about this letter from Germany's local support staff?
Well, this is a letter that apparently was sent to the Bundestag, the German parliament, and other elements of the German government back in July, but it's coming to light now, first reported by the German magazine Spiegel. And it's signed by a handful of translators and interpreters on the ground, locals in Mali, saying they fear for their lives, they fear retribution once German forces leave at the end of the year as part of the winding down of a UN peacekeeping mission there that has tried and failed to stabilize the country and protect the democratically elected government there for many years. German forces were there for a decade, or have been there for a decade. And they say, once the German forces leave, what happens to them? What's the plan? How will their security and safety and well-being for them and their families be assured? And that is something that they are very worried about, and German officials are looking into.
How have German authorities responded to this?
Really mixed. Of course, the military has come out and said they are aware of their responsibilities to local support staff that have been supporting both the military and humanitarian aid groups, both German and otherwise, international forces there. That they will do their responsibility to make sure that they are taken care of. But, and there's been individual parliamentary members, other policymakers who have said that it is the ethical and moral duty to make sure that these people are looked after. But there's really nothing specific in place. The German government is playing it down a bit by saying this letter only represents a small handful of the total number of local support staff that have been there supporting German forces and German operations in Mali. And so there's a number of options on the table, from making sure that they're well seen after in terms of financially taken care of, everything up to getting them out of Mali and bringing them to Germany. But we are a long way from that actually happening.
And why is the situation in Mali so precarious, both for locals there and for German policymakers?
Well, for locals, of course, is much more clear. The danger is much more clear and present. This is basically a failed mission, not only for Germany, but the United Nations, the international community overall. They've been trying to stabilize this country, protect the democratically elected governments over many years. There's now, since several coups, basically these forces have become persona non grata. The country's become much more Russia-friendly. And at the same time, so-called Islamic State, or actors related to the so-called Islamic State, have been destabilizing the country, especially in rural areas, and causing a lot of harm and fear through the population. And that is what German forces, part of this UN mission, are leaving behind. This is going to be their legacy. And that is what is tied over, of course, to problems for German policymakers. This is not a one-to-one comparison to what happened to Afghanistan, but the experience in Afghanistan is a sensitive spot for Germany, having been the largest contributor of troops in Afghanistan after the United States, and being really left to deal with thousands and thousands of local support staff in Afghanistan who needed help and have had their lives at risk. And so the question is, how do they take those lessons learned and those failures in Afghanistan to apply them to Mali so the same thing doesn't happen there? Now, albeit Mali is a much smaller operation, much fewer people here are at risk, but nonetheless, that sore spot is there, and German officials want to show that they've learned their lessons from Afghanistan, that they are going to tread much more differently, much more carefully in a place like Mali. But time will tell if that actually is the case.
Thank you very much, William, for that insight, and that special report. And our national news and business news is up next.